Lila Park adjusted her hairnet and checked the industrial kitchen equipment one final time before the morning rush. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in Lincoln Elementary School's cafeteria, casting harsh shadows across stainless steel surfaces that had seen better decades. At 36, Lila had been working lunch service here for exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 8 days. She wasn't counting by choice. The repetitive nature of institutional cooking made every day feel significant. "Park, the breakfast prep is running behind," called kitchen manager Dorothy Williams, her voice echoing off the tile walls. "We need those pancakes ready in 15 minutes. The kids start arriving soon." "On it," Lila replied, moving toward the massive griddle with the efficient movements that had made her indispensable to the small cafeteria staff. What Dorothy and the others didn't know was that Lila's kitchen skills came from years of training in five-star restaurants, not community college culinary classes. She poured the pre-made batter onto the griddle, watching it spread into perfectly round circles. The mixture was institutional grade, cheap, processed, designed for volume rather than nutrition or taste. As she flipped each pancake with mechanical precision, Lila tried not to remember when cooking had been an art form, when every ingredient was carefully selected and every dish was crafted with passion. 2 years ago, Chef Lila Park had been one of America's most celebrated culinary artists. Her restaurant empire, Park's Kitchen, had earned 3 Michelin stars across 4 locations in major cities. She had hosted 2 cooking shows on the Food Network, written 3 best-selling cookbooks, and been featured on magazine covers as the future of American cuisine. Food critics called her innovative Asian fusion style revolutionary, and celebrity clients flew across the country just to experience her 12-course tasting menus. Her flagship restaurant in downtown Metro City had been booked solid for 6 months in advance. The waiting list for her chef's table was so exclusive that reservations were traded like concert tickets. Food bloggers analyzed every dish she created, and culinary schools used her techniques in their advanced classes. Then came the Wilson Creek incident, and everything collapsed in a matter of weeks. It started with what should have been a routine food safety inspection at her flagship restaurant. The health department had found evidence of severe contamination in organic produce delivered by Apex Food Suppliers, her primary vendor for fresh ingredients. The contamination included dangerous bacteria that had somehow survived the supplier's cleaning processes. Within 24 hours, 23 customers who had dined at Park's Kitchen were hospitalized with severe food poisoning. The cases ranged from mild gastroenteritis to life-threatening complications. Most devastating was Jennifer Wilson Creek, a pregnant woman who lost her baby due to complications from the bacterial infection. The media response was immediate and merciless. Despite clear evidence that Apex Food Suppliers had systematically falsified safety certificates and delivered contaminated products to multiple restaurants throughout the region, the press focused entirely on Lila as the face of the crisis. "Celebrity chef's arrogance causes tragedy," screamed the tabloid headlines. Her photo appeared next to images of hospitalized patients and grieving families. Television reporters camped outside her restaurants, interviewing former employees who were eager to share gossip about kitchen operations and Lila's demanding management style. The narrative that emerged painted her as a reckless perfectionist who prioritized exotic ingredients over basic safety protocols. Social media amplified every criticism, with food bloggers and amateur critics competing to condemn her most harshly. The hashtag #ParkToxic trended for weeks, accompanied by photos of empty restaurant dining rooms and canceled reservations. The legal consequences followed quickly. Even though health department investigations eventually proved that Apex Food Suppliers had deliberately falsified inspection documents and knowingly sold contaminated produce throughout the tri-state area, the damage to Lila's reputation was irreversible. Customers stopped coming to her restaurants, not because the food was unsafe. It was actually safer than ever after she implemented enhanced safety protocols. But because dining at Park's Kitchen had become associated with scandal and tragedy, food critics who had once praised her creativity now questioned her judgment. Celebrity clients quietly removed themselves from her contact lists. The financial collapse was swift and devastating. With empty dining rooms and canceled catering contracts, Lila couldn't meet her loan payments for restaurant expansions she had planned during the height of her success. Investors pulled funding, landlords initiated eviction proceedings, and suppliers demanded immediate payment for outstanding invoices. Within 6 months, all 4 Park's Kitchen locations had closed permanently. Lila lost not only her restaurants, but also her Manhattan penthouse, her collection of rare cookbooks, and most of her personal savings. The woman who had once commanded 6-figure fees for private cooking events found herself unable to afford basic living expenses. The final blow came when the State Culinary Board, responding to intense media pressure and political concerns about food safety oversight, suspended her professional chef's license pending a comprehensive investigation. The suspension lasted 18 months, during which time Lila was legally prohibited from working in any commercial kitchen or food service operation. By the time she was officially cleared of all wrongdoing and her license was restored, her career was over. The investigation had thoroughly documented Apex Food Supplier's systematic fraud, but public attention had moved on to other scandals. No restaurant would hire her, no publisher would consider her cookbook proposals, and her former colleagues in the culinary world avoided her calls. Now, 2 years later, Lila existed in the shadows of her former life. She had legally simplified her name from Lila Park Chen to just Lila Park, dyed her distinctive silver-streaked hair a plain brown, and moved across the country to take a job that no food industry professional would ever think to look for her in. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent every day cooking with the same type of processed, low-quality ingredients she had once fought against in her restaurant career. But the work provided steady income, health insurance, and most importantly, anonymity from the culinary world that had first celebrated and then destroyed her. The school bell rang, signaling the start of another day. Soon, 400 elementary school children would line up for breakfast, their faces bright with the innocent energy that came from not knowing about adult complications like professional scandals or career failures. Lila had memorized these children's faces over the past 2 years. She knew which kids came to school hungry because there wasn't food at home, which ones had food allergies that required special attention, and which ones appreciated her small efforts to make institutional food slightly more appealing. Marcus Thompson, a 3rd grader whose mother worked 2 jobs to support the family, always arrived early for breakfast. He would approach Lila's serving station with shy politeness, grateful for whatever food was available, but clearly uncomfortable asking for anything extra. "Good morning, Ms. Park," Marcus said as he reached the front of the breakfast line. "What do we have today?" "Pancakes and fruit," Lila replied, automatically giving him slightly larger portions than the standard serving size. "How's your science project coming along?" Marcus's face lit up at her interest. "Really good. I'm growing bean plants to see how different types of water affect their growth. My mom helped me set up the experiment." Lila smiled genuinely for the first time that morning. Working in institutional food service had taught her something her Michelin-starred career never had: that feeding people properly wasn't about impressing critics or earning awards. It was about basic human dignity and care. "That sounds fascinating," she replied. "Make sure you eat your protein this morning so your brain has energy for all that scientific thinking." As Marcus found a seat with his friends, Lila continued serving breakfast to the steady stream of children. Each interaction was brief but meaningful, a small moment of adult attention in young lives that often lacked enough caring grown-ups. Sofia Martinez, a shy 2nd grader whose family had recently immigrated from El Salvador, approached with her usual hesitant smile. She qualified for free school meals and often seemed overwhelmed by the choices available in the cafeteria. Buenos dias, señora. Park, Sophia said quietly. Good morning, Sophia, Lila replied in careful Spanish she had been practicing. ¿Cómo estás hoy? Sophia's face brightened at hearing her native language. Muy bien, gracias. The pancakes smell very good today. Lila had noticed that Sophia often struggled with the texture and flavors of institutional American food, which were quite different from the home-cooked Central American dishes her grandmother prepared. Over the past few months, Lila had made small adjustments to Sophia's meals, adding extra seasoning where possible, ensuring her fruits were properly ripe, including foods that were more familiar to her cultural background when the menu allowed. Try the orange slices today, Lila suggested, adding fresh fruit to Sophia's tray. They're especially sweet this morning. After the breakfast service ended, Lila began preparing for lunch, while Dorothy reviewed the day's delivery schedules and menu requirements. The routine was predictable. Receive shipments of processed foods from corporate suppliers, follow standardized preparation instructions designed for efficiency rather than nutrition or taste, serve exactly the portions specified by district guidelines. Park, we need to talk, Dorothy said, approaching the prep station where Lila was checking tomorrow's inventory. Dorothy was a 20-year veteran of school food service, a practical woman who valued reliability and cost control above all else. The district office sent down new budget guidelines yesterday. We're going to have to make some changes to our menu starting next month. Lila looked up from the industrial-sized cans of vegetables she was counting, noting the tension in Dorothy's voice. What kind of changes? Dorothy handed her a memo printed on official school district letterhead. The document was dense with administrative language, but the essential message was clear. Cost reduction measures would be implemented across all food service operations to address budget shortfalls. Effective November 1st, we're switching to lower-grade ingredients across the board, Dorothy explained. Cheaper proteins, more processed vegetables, smaller portion sizes, eliminated fresh fruits except for special occasions. The district says it's necessary to avoid cutting staff positions. Lila scanned the document more carefully, her trained eye quickly calculating the nutritional impact of the proposed changes. The new menu would save approximately 40 cents per meal, but at the cost of protein quality, fresh produce, vitamin content, and overall nutritional value. I know, Dorothy replied, her voice heavy with the resignation of someone who had fought similar battles before and lost. I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I've seen budget cuts come and go. But this directive comes from the district office, not from me. We implement the changes as specified, or we lose funding entirely and have to close the food service program. Lila studied the memo again, noting that the changes were being implemented district-wide across all 47 schools. Thousands of children would be affected by these nutritional downgrades, many of whom depended on school meals for up to 2/3 of their daily caloric intake. When do these changes take effect? She asked. 3 weeks from Monday. I need you to help me inventory our current supplies and create new preparation schedules based on the revised recipes. Dorothy's tone carried the weariness of an experienced professional who understood the political realities of public education funding. That evening, Lila sat in her small apartment, staring at the district's new menu requirements. Her one-bedroom unit was spartanly furnished, a sharp contrast to the designer kitchen and panoramic city views she had once enjoyed in her Manhattan penthouse. But it was clean, quiet, and affordable on a cafeteria worker's salary of $28,000 per year. She pulled out her laptop, one of the few valuable possessions she had managed to keep through her financial collapse, and began researching the nutritional content of the proposed food substitutions. What she discovered confirmed her worst fears and reminded her why she had originally been passionate about cooking. The new menu would reduce daily protein intake for elementary school children by 35%, practically eliminate fresh produce consumption, and increase processed sugar and sodium content by nearly 50%. For growing children whose brains and bodies were developing rapidly, these changes could have serious long-term consequences for cognitive function, physical health, and academic performance. Lila thought about the individual children she served every day. Marcus Thompson, whose mother worked double shifts and depended on school meals to ensure her son received proper nutrition. Sophia Martinez, whose family struggled financially and qualified for free breakfast and lunch programs. James Wilson, who lived with his elderly grandmother and came to school early every morning specifically to eat breakfast because there often wasn't enough food at home. These children trusted that the adults in their lives would provide them with nutritious food that supported their growth and learning. The school district was betraying that trust in favor of budget spreadsheets and administrative convenience, treating children's nutrition as an acceptable sacrifice to financial pressures. Over the weekend, Lila made a decision that would ultimately change everything for her and thousands of children throughout the district. She couldn't prevent the district from implementing their cost-cutting measures, but she could supplement their inadequate menu with her own resources and expertise. It would mean spending her own limited money on ingredients, violating cafeteria protocols by preparing unauthorized food, and risking her job if administrators discovered her activities. But watching children suffer from malnutrition, while she possessed the skills and knowledge to help them, was morally unacceptable. Monday morning brought the new menu into effect exactly as scheduled. As directed by district policy, Lila prepared the approved meals: processed chicken patties on white bread buns, canned green beans cooked until they lost most of their nutritional value, and applesauce made from concentrate and artificial sweeteners. But she also made additional preparations that didn't appear on any official menu or budget allocation. Using money from her own paycheck, Lila had purchased fresh vegetables from the weekend farmers market. During her unpaid prep time before school started, she quickly diced bell peppers, shredded carrots, and sliced cucumbers with the knife skills that had once impressed restaurant critics. When it came time to serve lunch, she discreetly added these fresh vegetables to each child's tray, creating colorful and nutritious additions to the bland institutional meals. "Hey, we got real carrots today!" exclaimed Marcus as he reached Lila's station in the lunch line. "These look like the ones my mom buys at the grocery store." "Sometimes we get lucky with deliveries," Lila replied with a conspiratorial wink, adding an extra portion of fresh vegetables to his tray. "Make sure you eat them all so you grow strong." The children noticed the difference immediately. Fresh vegetables had vibrant colors, crisp textures, and natural flavors that their usual canned alternatives completely lacked. Several kids who normally picked around their vegetables or threw them away actually ate and enjoyed them. Sophia Martinez approached Lila's station with unusual enthusiasm. "Ms. Park, these peppers taste like the ones my abuela grows in her garden. How did you make them so good?" "Fresh vegetables always taste better than canned ones," Lila explained, adding extra portions to Sophia's tray. "And a little bit of the right seasoning helps bring out their natural flavors." Word spread quickly among the children that lunch was somehow different and better than usual. Students who normally brought lunch from home started asking their parents if they could buy school meals instead. Kids who usually ate only the required minimum began requesting seconds and thirds. Parents picking up their children after school began commenting on the change. "Maria came home yesterday raving about the school lunch vegetables," one mother told the teacher during pickup. "She actually asked me to buy carrots at the grocery store so she could have them at home too." Dorothy noticed the dramatic change in student enthusiasm for school meals, but she also noticed discrepancies in food preparation that couldn't be explained by official menus and ingredient lists. "Park, where did these fresh vegetables come from?" Dorothy asked during the afternoon cleanup. "They're not on today's prep list, and I don't see any purchase orders for fresh produce this week." "Found them in the walk-in cooler," Lila replied casually, which wasn't technically a lie. She had put the vegetables in the cooler after purchasing them herself. "Figured we should use them before they spoiled." Dorothy studied her with the sharp eye of someone who had managed institutional kitchens for 2 decades. "The cooler inventory doesn't show any fresh produce deliveries this week. Our supplier switched to canned vegetables only, remember?" Lila felt uncomfortable misleading Dorothy, who had been a supportive supervisor and seemed genuinely to care about providing quality food for the children despite budget constraints. But she wasn't ready to admit that she was violating district policies by supplementing meals with her own money. "Maybe there was a delivery mix-up," she suggested. "Sometimes we get ingredients meant for other schools." Dorothy accepted this explanation for the moment, but Lila could see that her supervisor was becoming suspicious about the sudden improvements in food quality that couldn't be explained by official procurement records. Over the following weeks, Lila's supplemental food program expanded as she found creative ways to enhance the district-mandated meals without dramatically altering their appearance or preparation time. She began arriving at work an hour early, using her unpaid time to prepare fresh additions that transformed institutional food into something resembling actual nutrition. Her personal grocery budget doubled, then tripled, as she purchased high-quality ingredients to improve the children's meals. She shopped strategically, buying seasonal produce when it was least expensive, purchasing bulk quantities of spices and seasonings that could enhance multiple dishes, and establishing relationships with vendors who were willing to provide small discounts for regular customers. The improvements were subtle but significant. A handful of fresh spinach mixed into processed tomato sauce for pizza day. Real cheese melted over institutional pasta instead of the artificial cheese product specified in district recipes. Fresh fruit salad served alongside canned peaches to provide actual vitamins and fiber. Small changes that made dramatic differences in both nutrition and taste. Lila developed increasingly sophisticated methods for incorporating healthy elements without drawing administrative attention. She learned to time her supplemental preparations so they appeared to be part of normal kitchen operations. She stored her personal ingredients alongside district supplies in ways that made them difficult to distinguish during casual inspections. The children's enthusiasm for school meals increased dramatically. Student participation in the lunch program grew by 15% as kids who had previously brought food from home started buying school meals. Food waste decreased significantly as children actually ate what was served to them instead of throwing it away. "Mom, the lunch lady makes the best vegetables I've ever tasted," Sophia told her mother in Spanish during pickup one afternoon. "They taste like the ones you grow in our garden at home, but somehow even better." Lila, overhearing the conversation while cleaning tables nearby, felt a warmth she hadn't experienced since her restaurant days. Cooking had always been about more than just combining ingredients according to recipes. It was about nourishing people, creating connections, and expressing care through food. In her Michelin-starred restaurants, she had impressed food critics and wealthy diners who treated meals as entertainment and social status. Here in Lincoln Elementary's cafeteria, she was actually feeding hungry children who needed proper nutrition to support their growth, learning, and development. But her secret supplementation program couldn't continue indefinitely without detection. Her personal savings were depleting rapidly, and Dorothy was asking increasingly pointed questions about ingredient sourcing, preparation times, and budget allocations that didn't match observable kitchen operations. The crisis came on a Wednesday morning in early December. Lila arrived for her usual early prep time to find Dorothy already in the kitchen, systematically checking inventory against delivery receipts and purchase orders. "Park, we need to have a serious conversation," Dorothy said, her expression troubled rather than angry. The numbers aren't adding up correctly. We're somehow serving fresh produce and enhanced meals that aren't appearing on any of our official purchase orders or budget allocations. Lila felt her chest tighten with the familiar anxiety that had characterized the final months of her restaurant career. She had known this moment would eventually come, but she hadn't prepared for how to handle the confrontation. "I can explain," she began. The substitutions were depressing in their systematic downgrading of food quality. Fresh apples would be replaced with processed applesauce made from concentrate. Grilled chicken breast would be replaced with mechanically separated poultry product formed into patties. Whole grain bread would be replaced with white bread made from bleached flour. Fresh vegetables would be replaced entirely with canned alternatives packed in sodium-heavy preservatives. "Dorothy, some of these kids get their only real meals here at school," Lila said carefully, trying to keep her voice neutral despite her growing alarm. "If we reduce protein content and eliminate fresh fruits and vegetables, we could be affecting their cognitive development and immune system function." "I think I already understand what's happening," Dorothy interrupted gently. "You've been supplementing our meals with your own money and ingredients, haven't you?" The kindness in Dorothy's voice, combined with the relief of no longer having to maintain her deception, almost broke Lila's composure. She nodded, unable to trust her voice to remain steady. Dorothy sat down on one of the prep stools, suddenly looking older than her 52 years. "Park, I appreciate what you're trying to do more than you can possibly know. I really do. These kids deserve better nutrition than our budget allows, and you've given them food that actually supports their health and development." "But," Lila prompted, sensing the inevitable objection, "but you can't solve the district's systemic budget problems with your personal savings," Dorothy continued. "And if the administration discovers that you're not following official protocols and procurement procedures, you could lose your job. Then you won't be able to help anyone." "The kids need real nutrition," Lila said quietly. "Some of them get 80 to 90% of their daily calories from school meals. The new district menu is basically processed junk food that provides calories but not the nutrients their developing brains and bodies require." "I know," Dorothy replied with evident frustration. "I've been fighting these budget cuts for 3 years, attending district meetings, submitting reports about the relationship between nutrition and academic performance. But working outside the system isn't sustainable, and it's not fair to expect you to personally finance improvements that should be the district's responsibility." That afternoon, Lila served lunch with a heavy heart. The children still smiled and thanked her, still appreciated the improvements she had made to their meals. But she knew her supplemental program couldn't continue in its current form. She was one person with limited resources fighting against an institutional system designed to prioritize cost reduction over children's nutritional needs. As she cleaned the kitchen after the final lunch service, Lila made another decision that would prove to be far more consequential than her choice to secretly improve school meals. If she couldn't change the system from within through covert supplementation, she would have to find a way to advocate for systemic change more directly. It was time to stop hiding her expertise and start using her professional knowledge to fight for children's nutrition at the policy level. That evening, she began drafting a comprehensive letter to Patricia Gonzalez, the school district's Director of Nutrition Services. Drawing on her years of professional experience in food service management, Lila carefully documented the nutritional deficiencies in the current menu, provided evidence of children's improved health and enthusiasm when served quality food, and proposed cost-effective alternatives that could improve meal quality without dramatically increasing expenses. She included detailed cost analyses, nutritional comparisons, and practical implementation strategies that demonstrated her sophisticated understanding of large-scale food service operations. The letter was professional, thorough, and clearly written by someone with extensive expertise in commercial food preparation and nutrition management. She signed it Lila Park, Lincoln Elementary cafeteria staff, and included her phone number and email address. It wasn't much of a risk compared to her secret supplementation program, but it was a step toward advocating openly for children's nutritional needs. What Lila didn't anticipate was that her letter would trigger a series of events that would not only expose the district's nutritional problems, but also reveal her own carefully hidden professional identity. The woman who had once been celebrated as America's most innovative chef was about to discover that her greatest culinary challenge wasn't impressing food critics. It was feeding hungry children within a system designed to prioritize cost savings over human nutrition. The response to Lila's letter came faster than she had expected. Less than a week after mailing it, she received a phone call at home from Patricia Gonzalez, the district's director of nutrition services. "Ms. Park, I received your letter regarding our elementary school meal programs," Patricia said, her voice carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to managing district-wide operations involving thousands of students and millions of dollars in food service contracts. "I have to say, your observations and recommendations are quite remarkable for someone in a frontline cafeteria position." Lila felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had expected her letter to disappear into the bureaucratic machinery of the school district, not generate immediate attention from senior administration. "I care about the children's nutrition and health," she replied carefully. "I see every day how food affects their energy levels, behavior, and ability to focus on learning. Your letter demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of nutrition science, food service economics, and large-scale meal preparation," Patricia continued. "The cost-benefit analyses you provided are more detailed than reports I receive from professional consultants. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss your suggestions in person." Lila's heart rate increased. A face-to-face meeting with district administration would be far more difficult to navigate than an anonymous letter. Her professional knowledge would be even more obvious in person, potentially raising questions about her background that she wasn't prepared to answer. "When would be convenient?" she asked. "This Friday at 2 p.m. in my office at the district headquarters. I'll also be inviting our food service coordinators, budget managers, and procurement specialists to attend. Your suggestions about improving nutrition while managing costs effectively are exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need." The comment carried an undertone of curiosity that made Lila nervous. She had tried to keep her recommendations practical and achievable, but her professional expertise in nutrition, food costs, and kitchen operations had probably shown through more clearly than she intended. "Of course," she replied. "I'll be there." "Excellent. And Ms. Park, bring any additional documentation or research that supports your recommendations. We're very interested in exploring these ideas further." The meeting was scheduled for the same time as Lila's usual work shift, so she had to request time off from Dorothy. Her supervisor granted the request, but seemed puzzled by the district administration's interest in a frontline cafeteria worker's policy suggestions. "In 20 years of working in school food service, I've never seen district officials ask for a lunch lady's opinion on nutrition policy," Dorothy observed. "Your letter must have made quite an impression on them." Friday afternoon found Lila sitting in a conference room at the district headquarters, facing 6 administrators who collectively managed food service operations for 23,000 students across 47 schools in the Metro City area. She felt underdressed in her best business casual clothes, which had been purchased from discount retailers rather than the designer boutiques she had once frequented. The conference room was intimidatingly corporate, with a long, polished table, ergonomic chairs, and wall-mounted monitors displaying budget projections and nutritional data. Patricia Gonzalez sat at the head of the table, flanked by officials whose job titles suggested they managed millions of dollars in food service contracts and policy decisions. Patricia opened the meeting by reviewing Lila's letter in detail. "Ms. Park, your nutritional analysis of our current menu is remarkably sophisticated. You've identified specific micronutrient deficiencies, calculated protein absorption rates, provided detailed cost comparisons between fresh and processed ingredients, and even included seasonal pricing variations for produce purchasing. Lila felt increasingly uncomfortable as Patricia listed the technical aspects of her recommendations. Her professional expertise was showing far more clearly than she had intended. This level of analysis is unusual for cafeteria staff, Patricia continued. Most frontline workers understand food preparation, but don't have the background to evaluate complex nutrition science or conduct comprehensive cost-benefit analyses. Budget manager Robert Chen leaned forward, consulting notes on his tablet computer. Your recommendations include switching to specific brands of whole grain flour, sourcing proteins from particular suppliers that meet certain quality standards, and implementing preparation techniques that would require advanced kitchen skills and significantly more labor time. Where did you acquire this detailed knowledge of commercial food service operations? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Lila realized that her professional background was becoming obvious to these experienced administrators who dealt regularly with food service proposals from trained nutritionists, commercial kitchen managers, and institutional cooking specialists. "I'm self-taught," she said, which was technically true. Much of her advanced culinary knowledge had come from years of independent study, experimentation, and continuous learning, even though it had been built on a foundation of formal culinary training and professional restaurant experience. Food service coordinator Maria Santos spoke up, her tone suggesting professional skepticism. "Ms. Park, we appreciate your dedication to student nutrition. However, implementing your suggestions would require significant changes to our procurement processes, staff training programs, kitchen equipment configurations, and preparation schedules. The complexity and cost implications could be substantial." "Actually," Lila replied, pulling out the detailed implementation plan she had prepared, "most of these changes would be budget neutral or even cost-saving in the long term. The key is understanding how to restructure purchasing and preparation to maximize nutritional value while minimizing waste and labor costs." She spread her calculations across the conference table, showing how bulk purchasing of basic ingredients could reduce per-meal costs while improving quality. Her analysis included seasonal price variations for produce, storage requirements for different types of ingredients, labor cost implications for various preparation methods, and equipment amortization schedules. "For example," she continued, pointing to specific data, "purchasing whole chickens and processing them in-house costs 63 cents less per pound than buying pre-formed patties, while providing significantly better protein quality, fewer preservatives, and more versatile menu options." Patricia studied the documents with obvious interest and growing curiosity. "This is professional-level food service analysis, Ms. Park. You've calculated everything from food waste percentages to equipment depreciation costs to seasonal labor scheduling. This kind of comprehensive operational planning typically requires years of experience in commercial kitchen management." The moment was approaching when Lila would have to choose between continuing to deflect questions about her background or revealing enough of the truth to maintain credibility with these experienced professionals. "What did you do before working in our cafeteria?" Patricia asked directly. "I worked in restaurant management," Lila said finally. It wasn't the complete truth, but it wasn't technically a lie either. Robert Chen made notes on his tablet while Maria Santos consulted her own files. "Which restaurants?" Maria asked. "Your knowledge base suggests experience with large-scale food preparation, supply chain management, and nutrition science that goes well beyond typical restaurant work." Before Lila could formulate an answer that would satisfy their curiosity without revealing too much, Maria Santos's phone buzzed urgently. She glanced at the message and her expression immediately shifted to concern. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Maria said, "but we have an urgent situation developing at Jefferson Middle School. Multiple students have reported feeling ill after eating lunch, and parents are beginning to arrive at the school demanding answers. The room fell silent. Food-related illness in schools was every administrator's worst nightmare, carrying the potential for serious health consequences, massive legal liability, extensive media coverage, and political fallout that could destroy careers. Patricia immediately shifted into crisis management mode. What do we know about today's menu at Jefferson? Maria consulted her phone for additional details. Same district-approved menu as all middle schools today. Processed chicken patties, canned green beans, packaged fruit cups, white bread rolls. All ingredients came from our approved suppliers with current safety certifications and delivery schedules. How many students are affected? Asked Robert Chen. 15 so far, but the number could be growing. Symptoms include nausea, stomach pain, and diarrhea. The school nurse is monitoring the situation, but several parents have already taken their children to urgent care centers. As the administrators discussed emergency protocols, legal liability, media management, and health department notification requirements, Lila felt a familiar chill of recognition. The scenario unfolding was eerily similar to the crisis that had destroyed her restaurant career 2 years earlier. Could be food poisoning, allergic reactions, or even unrelated illness like a stomach virus, Robert observed. But we need to investigate immediately and implement containment protocols to prevent any additional exposures. Ms. Park, Patricia said, turning back to Lila, we'll need to reschedule this meeting. This situation requires our immediate attention and could potentially affect all schools in the district. As the meeting broke up and administrators hurried to coordinate their emergency response, Lila gathered her papers and prepared to leave. But as she reached the conference room door, Patricia called her back. Ms. Park, one more question. In your restaurant management experience, did you ever deal with food safety crises or contamination incidents? Lila paused, her hand on the door handle. The question was professionally relevant, but it also felt like a test of her credibility and expertise. Yes, she said quietly. I have significant experience with that kind of situation. Would you be willing to assist with our investigation? Patricia asked. Your analytical skills and food safety knowledge could be valuable in identifying the source of the contamination and preventing additional incidents. It was a request Lila couldn't have anticipated. The same administrators who had been questioning her qualifications were now asking for her help with a crisis that could destroy careers and endanger children's health. The irony was painful. Her experience with food safety disasters was exactly what they needed. But that experience came from being wrongfully blamed for a crisis that had ruined her life. Of course, she heard herself saying, I want to help if I can. What followed was an intensive crash course in school district crisis management. Lila found herself in the district's Emergency Operations Center, working alongside health department investigators, food safety specialists, and district administrators to trace the source of the Jefferson Middle School contamination incident. The Operations Center was a windowless room filled with computers, phones, and wall-mounted monitors displaying real-time information about the developing crisis. Health officials coordinated with hospital emergency rooms, district staff managed communications with concerned parents, and food safety experts collected samples from Jefferson's kitchen for laboratory analysis. Lila's role initially involved reviewing food preparation logs, delivery schedules, and supplier documentation to identify potential contamination sources. Her professional expertise became immediately obvious as she quickly identified discrepancies and potential problems that less experienced staff had missed. Look at this, she said, pointing to a delivery receipt from Supreme Food Distributors. The temperature log shows that this shipment of fruit cups was delivered at 48 degrees, but they should be maintained at 36 degrees maximum. That 4-hour temperature abuse window is exactly when bacterial growth accelerates. Patricia studied the documentation with growing respect for Lila's analytical abilities. How did you spot that so quickly? Most of our staff wouldn't notice that kind of detail. Temperature control is critical for food safety, Lila explained. Even small variations can create conditions for dangerous bacterial growth, especially in prepackaged items that don't receive additional cooking. As the investigation continued, Lila's recommendations proved consistently accurate. She identified supply chain vulnerabilities, suggested additional testing protocols, and proposed containment strategies that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of both food science and crisis management. The investigation revealed that Supreme Food distributors had been systematically cutting corners on temperature control and safety protocols to reduce transportation costs. The contaminated fruit cups had been stored improperly, transported without adequate refrigeration, and delivered to schools despite obvious signs of spoilage. This supplier has been providing falsified safety certificates for at least 6 months, Patricia observed as they reviewed inspection records. They've been cutting costs by reducing refrigeration, extending delivery schedules, and shipping products that should have been discarded. Lila studied the documentation with professional expertise that no longer surprised the administrators. The contamination pattern suggests deliberate negligence rather than accidental temperature abuse. The supplier probably knew these products were compromised, but shipped them anyway to avoid financial losses. Her analysis proved accurate. By evening, health department investigators had confirmed that Supreme Food distributors had knowingly shipped contaminated products to avoid taking losses on spoiled inventory. 15 students had become ill, but quick medical attention and proper treatment prevented serious complications. As the crisis wound down and emergency protocols were deactivated, Patricia approached Lila with a thoughtful expression. Ms. Park, your knowledge of food safety protocols, supply chain management, and contamination analysis is remarkably sophisticated. You've analyzed this situation more effectively than some of our trained specialists. Lila realized that her professional cover was completely compromised. Her expertise had been too obvious to hide during the crisis, and these experienced administrators weren't going to accept vague explanations about self-teaching or restaurant management experience. I think it's time I told you the complete truth about my background, she said. The revelation came in Patricia Gonzalez's office at 8 p.m. on a Friday evening, after the Jefferson Middle School crisis had been resolved, media statements had been released, and emergency protocols had been stood down. Only Patricia and Lila remained in the district headquarters, surrounded by empty coffee cups and stacks of food safety documentation. Ms. Park, Patricia said gently, I think both of us know that your background is significantly more extensive than basic restaurant management. Your analysis of today's crisis was textbook food safety investigation, the kind of expertise that comes from advanced professional training and, unfortunately, personal experience with similar situations. Lila sat quietly for a moment, weighing her options carefully. She could continue deflecting questions and probably maintain her job at Lincoln Elementary, living anonymously and helping children in small ways. Or she could trust Patricia with the truth and risk everything she had built over the past 2 years. My name is Lila Park, she began slowly. 2 years ago, I was the chef and owner of Park's Kitchen restaurants. I lost everything when one of my suppliers delivered contaminated ingredients that hospitalized 23 customers, including a pregnant woman who lost her baby. Patricia's expression shifted from curiosity to recognition, and then to understanding. Park's Kitchen, the Wilson Creek incident. I remember reading about that case extensively. You were eventually cleared of all wrongdoing when the investigation exposed systematic fraud by the supplier, weren't you? Yes, but not until after my restaurants had closed, my reputation was destroyed, and my professional life was completely ruined. Lila replied. The media convicted me before the facts emerged. By the time I was officially exonerated, there was no career to return to. Patricia leaned back in her chair, processing this information and its implications. So, you've been working in our school cafeteria under your real name, but hiding your professional background and expertise. I needed a job, and institutional food service was the only part of the culinary industry that would hire me, Lila explained. I thought I would just work quietly, earn a steady paycheck, and stay invisible. But watching these children eat processed junk food every day while I had the knowledge to help them, I couldn't stay silent. Your supplemental nutrition program, Patricia said. Dorothy Williams told me about your unauthorized food purchases and menu enhancements. You've been spending your own money to improve the children's meals. Lila nodded. I know I violated district protocols and procurement procedures, but these kids deserve better nutrition than our current budget allows. Some of them depend on school meals for most of their daily calories and nutritional needs. Patricia stood up and walked to the window overlooking the district's administrative complex. Outside, maintenance crews were cleaning empty hallways and turning off lights as the building settled into weekend quiet. Lila, she said, using her first name for the first time. What happened to you was exactly what I'm afraid could happen to our district after today's incident. A competent professional doing their best work gets destroyed by circumstances beyond their control, while the real culprits escape responsibility. The difference, Lila replied, is that you have institutional support, legal resources, and public accountability that I didn't have as an individual restaurant owner. The district can weather this crisis if you handle it properly. And if we don't handle it properly? Lila thought about her own experience with media hysteria, public blame, and institutional failure. Then good people lose their jobs, children suffer from reduced nutrition programs, and vendors continue shipping substandard food because there's no accountability or oversight. Patricia turned back from the window with a decisive expression. I have a proposition for you. The district needs a new approach to nutrition management. Someone who understands both food safety and child nutrition, who can work within our budget constraints but refuse to compromise on quality. Would you be interested in consulting on our food service operations? The offer was more than Lila had dared to hope for, but she felt compelled to be completely honest about the potential risks and complications. Patricia, if my identity becomes public, it could create controversy for the district. Some people will always associate me with the Wilson Creek incident, regardless of the actual facts or my legal exoneration. Let me worry about managing public perception, Patricia replied. What I need is someone who can prevent future incidents like today's, while simultaneously improving nutrition for 23,000 students. Your expertise could transform our entire food service program. That weekend, Lila found herself in unfamiliar emotional territory, optimistic about her professional future for the first time in over 2 years. Patricia's consulting offer would allow her to use her skills and knowledge on a much larger scale while staying connected to the hands-on work with children that had given her new purpose and meaning. Monday morning brought a different kind of recognition at Lincoln Elementary. Dorothy Williams approached her during prep time with a knowing smile and a printout of newspaper articles. So, Park, Dorothy said, emphasizing the name with gentle amusement. I did some internet research over the weekend. Imagine my surprise when I discovered that my quiet cafeteria worker is actually one of the most famous chefs in America. Lila looked up from the industrial mixer, where she was preparing pancake batter, feeling exposed but not entirely uncomfortable. Former famous chef. Now I'm just someone who wants to feed children properly. The kids don't know about your background, Dorothy observed. But they know you care about them more than anyone else in this building. That matters infinitely more than any award or recognition you might have won in restaurants. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus Thompson, the third grader who always came early for breakfast. He approached Lila's station with his usual enthusiasm, completely unaware of the adult conversation about celebrity and professional identity. "Good morning, Ms. Park. What's for breakfast today?" "Pancakes," Lila replied, ladling batter onto the griddle. "Made from scratch this morning with real vanilla extract and a touch of cinnamon." She had convinced Dorothy to let her prepare fresh batter using a combination of district-approved mix and her own nutritional additions: whole wheat flour to boost fiber content, real vanilla extract instead of artificial flavoring, and spices that enhanced both taste and nutritional value. "These are the best pancakes in the whole world," Marcus declared after his first bite. "You should teach other schools how to make them this good." Lila smiled, thinking about Patricia's consulting offer and the possibility of improving nutrition for thousands of children across the district. "Maybe I will, Marcus. Maybe I will." As the morning breakfast service continued, Lila reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 1 week. The crisis at Jefferson Middle School had forced her to reveal her professional identity, but instead of destroying her carefully constructed new life, it had opened opportunities she hadn't expected or imagined. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Patricia. "District board meeting tonight at 7 p.m. They want to discuss your consulting proposal and nutrition program recommendations. Are you ready to go public with your plans for improving school nutrition?" Lila looked around the cafeteria at the children eating breakfast, their faces bright with the energy that came from actually nutritious food prepared with care. She thought about the thousands of other students across the district who deserved the same quality meals, and about the systemic changes that could make comprehensive nutrition improvements possible. She typed back, "Ready. Let's feed these kids properly." The school board meeting that evening would test everything Lila had learned about courage, professional advocacy, and the difference between hiding from controversy and standing up for principles that matter. The woman who had once cooked for celebrity clients and food critics was about to discover that her most important audience had always been hungry children who trusted adults to take care of their basic needs. The district board meeting was held in a sterile conference room that could have belonged to any corporate office building. 7 elected board members sat around a polished table, reviewing folders of financial documents and policy proposals while dealing with the routine business of managing a school system that served over 25,000 students. Lila arrived 15 minutes early, wearing her best professional outfit, a navy blue dress she had purchased specifically for this presentation. The dress was simple but well-fitted, projecting competence without ostentation. She carried a leather portfolio containing her comprehensive nutrition reform proposal, supporting documentation, and backup materials for anticipated questions. Patricia Gonzalez had coached her thoroughly on the political dynamics of school board meetings over the weekend. "Remember," Patricia had advised, "these are elected officials who care primarily about student achievement, parental satisfaction, and budget management. Frame your proposals in terms of measurable outcomes, cost effectiveness, and community benefits." Board President Helen Carter called the meeting to order at exactly 7 p.m. After handling routine administrative matters, approving personnel changes, and reviewing budget reports, she announced the evening's special presentation. "Tonight we'll be hearing a proposal for restructuring our district's nutrition services program. Ms. Gonzalez will introduce our nutrition consultant." Patricia stood and activated the projector screen, which displayed the title, "Comprehensive Nutrition Reform: Improving Student Health and Academic Performance Through Better Food Service." "Board members, I'd like to introduce Lila Park, who has been working in our food service operations and has developed comprehensive recommendations for improving student nutrition while managing costs effectively and enhancing food safety protocols." Lila approached the podium, feeling the familiar nervousness that came with high-stakes presentations. But instead of facing food critics or restaurant investors, She was addressing people who controlled policy decisions affecting the daily nutrition of 23,000 children. "Thank you for this opportunity," she began. "I want to start by sharing some observations from working directly in school food service and witnessing how nutrition affects children's behavior, learning, and development." She clicked to her first slide, showing photographs of typical school meals before and after implementing minor modifications. The contrast was striking. Processed, colorless institutional food versus vibrant, fresh ingredients prepared with care and attention to both nutrition and presentation. "These photos were taken 1 week apart in the same cafeteria," she explained. "The meals on the right cost the same as those on the left, but provide significantly better nutrition, higher student satisfaction, and measurable improvements in food waste reduction." Board member Dr. James Wright raised his hand. "Ms. Park, what qualifies you to make recommendations about district-wide nutrition policy? What's your professional background in food service management?" This was the moment Lila had been preparing for since agreeing to the presentation. Patricia had advised her to be direct about her background, rather than allowing board members to discover it independently through internet searches or media reports. "I have 15 years of professional experience in food service management, including running restaurant operations that served over 2,000 meals daily," she replied. "I also have firsthand experience with food safety crises, supply chain management, and the regulatory environment that governs commercial food service." Board member Maria Santos consulted her tablet computer, clearly researching Lila's background in real time. "Could you be more specific about your restaurant experience and professional qualifications?" Lila took a deep breath, knowing that complete honesty was the only viable approach. "I was the chef and owner of Park's Kitchen restaurants until 2 years ago, when I lost my business due to a supplier-related food safety incident that was eventually determined to be the result of systematic fraud by our vendor." The recognition was immediate and obvious. Several board members exchanged glances, and she could see them connecting her name with news stories they remembered from 2 years earlier. Board President Carter leaned forward with evident interest. "The Wilson Creek case," Carter said. "I followed that story extensively in the news media. Weren't you eventually cleared of all wrongdoing when investigators proved that your supplier had been systematically falsifying safety certificates?" "Yes," Lila confirmed. "The investigation conclusively proved that our supplier had been deliberately shipping contaminated products while providing fraudulent documentation. But the media attention and public controversy had already destroyed my restaurant's and professional reputation." "So why are you interested in school food service?" asked Dr. Wright, his tone suggesting both curiosity and skepticism. Lila clicked to her next slide, showing nutritional analysis data from Lincoln Elementary that documented the relationship between meal quality and student behavior. "Because I've learned that feeding people properly isn't about impressing critics or earning awards. It's about providing basic nutrition to children who depend on these meals for their health, development, and ability to learn effectively." She spent the next 30 minutes presenting her comprehensive plan for improving district nutrition services. Her proposal included detailed recommendations for restructuring supplier relationships to prioritize quality and safety over absolute lowest cost, training kitchen staff in basic food preparation techniques that could improve meals without significantly increasing labor costs, implementing seasonal menu planning that took advantage of local produce availability and natural price cycles, creating nutrition education programs that connected classroom learning with cafeteria meals, establishing food safety protocols that would prevent contamination incidents like the recent Jefferson Middle School crisis. The financial projections showed that her recommendations would be budget neutral in the first year and could actually save money in subsequent years through reduced food waste, improved supplier relationships, increased meal participation, and decreased administrative costs associated with food safety incidents. Ms. Park, said Board Treasurer Robert Kim, your financial analysis is quite impressive and thorough. But implementing these changes would require significant disruption to our current operations and vendor relationships. What makes you confident that the benefits would justify the transition costs and operational complexity? Lila had prepared for this question by studying successful nutrition programs in other school districts. 3 school districts in neighboring states have implemented similar programs over the past 5 years. All 3 reported improved student achievement scores, reduced disciplinary problems, increased parental satisfaction, and positive media coverage that enhanced community support for public education. She clicked to a slide showing specific data from these comparison districts. The return on investment includes educational benefits that extend far beyond food service costs. Students who receive proper nutrition demonstrate measurably better academic performance, which ultimately supports the district's primary mission of educational excellence. Board member Angela Foster raised a concern that Lila had anticipated but hoped to avoid. Ms. Park, given your previous media coverage and the controversy surrounding the Wilson Creek incident, are you concerned that hiring you as a consultant could create negative publicity for the district? Lila had wrestled with this question throughout her preparation for the presentation. Complete honesty seemed like the best approach, even if it might damage her prospects. That's a valid concern, she replied. But I would rather face potential controversy for trying to improve children's nutrition than avoid controversy while allowing them to consume processed food that doesn't support their health and development. My role would be behind the scenes, developing policies and training staff. The focus should be on measurable results for students, not on personalities or past incidents. Patricia Gonzalez stepped forward to provide additional context. Board members, Ms. Park's expertise was crucial in resolving last week's food safety incident at Jefferson Middle School. Her analysis identified the source of contamination faster than our usual protocols, potentially preventing a much more serious outbreak that could have affected multiple schools. Board President Carter consulted her notes before asking the next question. Ms. Park, if we approve this consulting arrangement, what would be your immediate first priority? Emergency preparedness and food safety protocols, Lila replied without hesitation. The Jefferson incident demonstrated that our current supplier verification system has significant gaps that could expose children to health risks. My first recommendation would be implementing comprehensive safety protocols that prevent contaminated food from entering our kitchens. She clicked to a slide showing her proposed supplier audit system. Every vendor would undergo quarterly inspections with random testing of delivered products. We would also diversify our supplier base to avoid depending too heavily on any single company that could compromise safety through cost-cutting measures. Dr. Wright nodded approvingly. That sounds like a reasonable precaution. What about the cost implications of enhanced safety protocols? The comprehensive audit system would add approximately 2% to our annual food service costs, Lila explained. But it would virtually eliminate the risk of district-wide contamination incidents that could cost millions in medical expenses, legal fees, reputation damage, and decreased enrollment. The board spent another 45 minutes asking detailed questions about implementation timelines, staff training requirements, performance metrics, community relations, and long-term sustainability. Lila answered each question with the confidence and expertise of someone who had thought through every aspect of the proposal. Finally, Board President Carter called for a preliminary vote on whether to approve the consulting contract. The motion passed 5-2, with Dr. Wright and one other member voting against due to concerns about potential media attention and operational complexity. Ms. Park, Carter announced, welcome to Metro City School District. We look forward to seeing what you can accomplish for our students. As the meeting concluded, Lila felt a mixture of relief, anticipation, and renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in over 2 years, she had a professional opportunity that fully utilized her skills and knowledge while allowing her to make a meaningful difference in children's lives. Patricia approached her as they gathered their presentation materials. Congratulations, Lila. This is just the beginning of what I think will be a remarkable transformation. Thank you for believing in me and advocating for this opportunity, Lila replied. I won't let you or the children down. The next morning brought a new reality at Lincoln Elementary. Word of Lila's background and new consulting role had spread among the staff, and she found herself the center of curious attention from teachers and administrators who had previously barely noticed the quiet cafeteria worker. I can't believe we had a celebrity chef working in our kitchen and didn't realize it, said third-grade teacher Mrs. Rodriguez as she picked up her lunch tray. No wonder the food has been so much better lately. I'm not a celebrity anymore, Lila replied, serving her a portion of fresh vegetable soup that she had prepared that morning using techniques that transformed simple ingredients into appealing, nutritious food. I'm just someone who wants to make sure these kids get the nutrition they need to learn and grow. But the most meaningful reaction came from the children themselves. As word spread among students that their lunch lady was actually a famous chef who had chosen to work at their school, their enthusiasm for school meals increased dramatically. Ms. Park, is it true you used to cook for movie stars? Asked Sophia Martinez during lunch service, her eyes wide with excitement. I cooked for lots of different people, Lila replied, adding extra vegetables to Sophia's tray. But cooking for you and your classmates is much more important work. Why? Sophia asked with the direct curiosity that only children possess. Lila considered the question as she served soup to the next child in line. Because movie stars have lots of choices about where to eat and can afford any kind of food they want. You depend on me to make sure your school lunch helps you grow strong and smart. That's a much bigger responsibility. The conversation was overheard by Principal Jennifer Martinez, who had been observing the cafeteria with renewed interest since learning about Lila's background and consulting appointment. Ms. Park, Principal Martinez said later, I've noticed that our students' attitudes towards school meals have changed dramatically since you started working here. They're excited about lunch in a way I've never seen before in 15 years of elementary education. Children know when adults genuinely care about them, Lila replied. They can taste the difference between food that's prepared with attention and care versus food that's just processed efficiently to meet minimum requirements. Over the following weeks, as news of her appointment spread throughout the district, Lila began implementing the first phases of her comprehensive nutrition improvement plan. Her initial focus was on establishing relationships with local farms and food suppliers who could provide fresh, seasonal ingredients at competitive prices while meeting the volume requirements of institutional food service. The key was building long-term partnerships rather than simply accepting the lowest bids from corporate distributors. Local and regional suppliers were often willing to provide better prices and higher quality products in exchange for the stability of large, predictable institutional contracts. She also began developing training programs for cafeteria staff across all 47 schools in the district. Many workers had been preparing the same institutional meals for years and had never learned basic cooking techniques that could transform simple ingredients into appealing, nutritious food that children would actually enjoy eating. We're not trying to create gourmet restaurant meals, Lila explained during a training session at Roosevelt High School. We're learning how proper seasoning, appropriate cooking temperatures, and attractive presentation can make nutritious food that children actually want to eat instead of throwing away. The changes were gradual but increasingly noticeable throughout the district. Student meal participation increased by 18% in the first month. Food waste decreased significantly as children ate more of what was served to them. Parents began commenting positively about their children's enthusiasm for school lunch and improved eating habits at home. Most importantly, teachers reported improved classroom behavior, better attention spans, and enhanced academic performance in schools where nutrition improvements had been implemented most comprehensively. When children receive proper nutrition, everything else becomes easier, Lila explained to a group of visiting parents and community leaders. They have more energy for learning, better mood regulation, and enhanced cognitive function. Nutrition isn't separate from education. It's the foundation that makes effective learning possible. The program caught the attention of local media outlets, who were initially attracted by the novelty of a former celebrity chef working in school cafeterias. But the stories that emerged focused on student achievement, community health, and innovative approaches to institutional food service, rather than Lila's personal career recovery. Metro City schools transform student nutrition with innovative farm-to-school programs, read the headline in the regional newspaper. The article highlighted improved test scores, reduced disciplinary problems, and increased parental satisfaction in schools where comprehensive nutrition improvements had been implemented. 6 months after starting her consulting work, Lila received an unexpected visitor at Lincoln Elementary. Catherine Williams, a representative from the State Department of Education, approached the cafeteria during lunch service, observing the organized efficiency of food preparation and the obvious enthusiasm of students for their meals. "Excuse me," the woman said. "I'm looking for Lila Park. I'm Catherine Williams from the State Department of Education." "That's me," Lila replied, continuing to serve lunch to the line of waiting children while maintaining her conversation. "I've been following your nutrition program development with great interest. We're considering implementing similar programs statewide, and I'd like to discuss the possibility of your consulting on policy development at the state level. This could affect nutrition programs for over 500,000 students across the state." The offer was professionally flattering and would represent a significant career advancement opportunity. But Lila had learned to value different things than she had during her restaurant career. She looked around the cafeteria at the children eating nutritious meals, the staff who had embraced new cooking techniques with enthusiasm, and the evidence of a program that was making measurable differences in young lives. "I appreciate the offer," she replied, "but I think I'm most effective working directly with the children and communities I serve. I'm not interested in becoming a state-level administrator or policy developer." Catherine Williams seemed surprised by the response. "Ms. Park, this would be a significant career advancement opportunity with substantial salary increases and professional recognition. The state position would give you influence over nutrition programs that could benefit hundreds of thousands of students. And it would take me away from the kitchen where I can actually cook for children and see the daily impact of proper nutrition on their health and development," Lila replied. "I've learned that real change happens at the community level, not in policy meetings at the state capitol." After Catherine Williams left, Patricia Gonzalez approached Lila with an amused smile. "You turned down a state government position to keep working in elementary school cafeterias. I think you've figured out what really matters to you." "I spent 15 years trying to impress food critics, earn professional recognition, and build a celebrity brand," Lila said. "It took losing everything to realize that feeding people properly, especially children who depend on adults to meet their basic needs, is more important than any award, title, or recognition." As the school year continued, Lila's program expanded to include community partnerships with local health organizations, cooking classes for parents and families, and summer nutrition programs for children who might not have access to regular meals during school breaks. The most rewarding moment came during the spring parent-teacher conferences, when Marcus Thompson's mother approached Lila with tears in her eyes. "Ms. Park," she said, "Marcus comes home every day talking about the healthy food at school and asking me to cook vegetables the way you do. His pediatrician says his nutrition has improved dramatically this year, and his teacher reports that his concentration and academic performance are the best they've ever been. Thank you for caring about my son and teaching him that good food can taste good too. That evening, as Lila cleaned the kitchen after the day's final meal service, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. 3 years ago, she had been preparing elaborate tasting menus for wealthy diners who treated dining as entertainment and social status. Now she was serving simple, nutritious meals to children who needed proper food to learn, grow, and develop into healthy adults. She had lost her restaurants, her celebrity status, her financial security, and her place in the culinary spotlight. But she had gained something infinitely more valuable: a sense of purpose that connected directly to improving people's lives and contributing to the healthy development of an entire generation of children. Dorothy Williams approached as Lila finished wiping down the prep tables for the night. "Lila, I have something for you." She handed Lila a folded piece of paper, a hand-drawn card from Sophia's second-grade class. The front showed a crayon drawing of a woman in a hairnet standing behind a cafeteria counter, surrounded by smiling children holding plates of colorful food. Inside, 25 signatures surrounded a message written in careful second-grade handwriting. "Thank you, Ms. Park, for making good food that helps us learn and grow strong." "The kids wanted to make this for you," Dorothy explained. "They know you could work anywhere doing anything, but they're grateful you choose to work here with them." Lila felt her eyes fill with tears as she read each child's signature and looked at their drawings of vegetables, fruits, and happy faces. These children didn't care about Michelin stars, restaurant reviews, or celebrity chef status. They simply appreciated having an adult who cared enough to ensure their daily nutrition supported their health, development, and ability to learn effectively. The next morning brought news that would test everything Lila had learned about resilience, public scrutiny, and maintaining focus on what truly matters. A national food industry magazine had discovered her story and planned to publish a feature article titled "From Michelin Stars to School Lunches: The Redemption Story of Celebrity Chef Lila Park." Patricia called her into the district office to discuss how to handle the anticipated media attention and its potential impact on both the nutrition program and the district's public image. "The story will probably bring both positive and negative coverage," Patricia warned. "Some people will celebrate your commitment to child nutrition and career transformation, but others might try to resurrect old controversies about the Wilson Creek incident or question the district's decision to hire you." Lila had been dreading this moment, the return of media scrutiny that could overshadow the work she was doing with children and potentially create problems for the district that had given her a second chance. "Patricia, whatever happens with the media coverage, I want to continue this work," she said firmly. "These children deserve advocates who won't be scared away by controversy or negative publicity." The article, when it appeared, was more balanced and thoughtful than Lila had expected. While it included background information about her restaurant empire's collapse and the Wilson Creek incident, it focused primarily on her innovative approach to school nutrition and the measurable improvements in student health and academic achievement. "Chef Lila Park has traded celebrity status for something more meaningful," the article concluded. "Her school nutrition programs prove that great cooking isn't about impressing critics or earning awards. It's about nourishing the people who need it most, when they need it most." The national attention brought interview requests from television programs, offers from publishers interested in a cookbook about healthy school nutrition, and invitations to speak at educational conferences across the country. Lila declined most of these opportunities, preferring to focus on her direct work with students, staff, and families. But she did accept one invitation that aligned with her new priorities and values: a request to address the National School Nutrition Association's annual conference. Her presentation would focus on practical strategies for improving institutional food service while working within budget constraints and building community support. Standing at the podium before 2,000 food service professionals from across the United States, Lila felt the same nervousness she had experienced during high-pressure restaurant presentations. But her message was completely different now, less about showcasing her own expertise and more about sharing strategies that could benefit children nationwide. 3 years ago, I measured success by restaurant reviews, profit margins, and professional recognition, she told the audience. Now I measure it by whether children finish their vegetables, ask for seconds, and develop healthy eating habits that will serve them throughout their lives. The most important critics are 7-year-olds who depend on us for their daily nutrition. The presentation was enthusiastically received, connecting Lila with food service professionals from around the country who shared her commitment to improving institutional nutrition. She began consulting with school districts across the region, helping them implement similar programs adapted to their local resources, community needs, and budget constraints. A year after starting her district consulting work, Lila stood in the renovated kitchen at Lincoln Elementary, watching her staff prepare lunch for 400 students. The industrial equipment was largely the same, but the atmosphere had been completely transformed. Staff members worked with pride, enthusiasm, and professional satisfaction, preparing fresh vegetables, whole grain dishes, and nutritious proteins that children actually enjoyed eating. The transformation was measured in more than just nutritional improvements and student satisfaction. Academic achievement scores had increased measurably, disciplinary problems had decreased significantly, and attendance rates had improved in schools where comprehensive nutrition programs had been implemented. The connection between proper nutrition and effective learning was no longer theoretical. It was documented in data that convinced even skeptical board members and budget-conscious administrators. Marcus Thompson, now a fourth grader and one of Lila's most enthusiastic supporters, approached her serving station with his usual energy and gratitude. "Ms. Park, my mom wants to know if you can teach her how to make that vegetable soup you serve here," he said. "She says it's the only way she can get me to eat carrots and spinach, and she wants to make it at home too." "Tell your mom to come to our family cooking class next Saturday," Lila replied, adding extra portions of vegetables to his tray. "We'll learn how to make healthy food that tastes good and doesn't cost too much money." The family cooking classes had become one of Lila's favorite programs. Parents and children worked together to prepare simple, nutritious meals while learning about food safety, budget-conscious shopping, and nutrition science. The classes built community connections while extending healthy eating habits beyond school cafeterias into homes and families. As the lunch service continued, Lila reflected on how her definition of success and professional achievement had evolved. During her restaurant career, she had measured accomplishment through external recognition, awards, reviews, celebrity status, and financial success. Now she found deep satisfaction in incremental improvements to children's daily nutrition and the knowledge that her work contributed to their long-term health, development, and academic success. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Patricia. Board-approved expansion of nutrition program to all middle and high schools next year. Also approved funding for demonstration kitchen and staff training facility. Congratulations on building something that will benefit children for generations. The message captured something important about the work Lila had chosen. Restaurant careers were built on individual achievement, personal brand recognition, and competitive success. School nutrition programs were about creating institutional changes that would benefit children for decades, regardless of who implemented them or received credit for their development. That evening, as Lila prepared to leave Lincoln Elementary after completing her administrative work, she encountered Sophia Martinez in the hallway. The girl was now in 3rd grade and had become one of the cafeteria's most confident and enthusiastic customers. "Ms. Park," Sophia said, "my little brother is starting kindergarten next year. Will you still be here to make his lunch and teach him about healthy food?" "I'll be here," Lila promised, and I'll make sure he gets the same nutritious food that helped you grow so strong and smart." As Sophia skipped away to join her mother, Lila realized that she had found something more valuable than any professional achievement from her previous career. She had discovered work that mattered beyond personal success, work that contributed to the health, development, and future success of an entire generation of children. The celebrity chef, who had once cooked for famous clients and food critics, had become something infinitely more important: a guardian of children's nutrition, an advocate for institutional change, and a living reminder that the most meaningful success often comes from serving those who need it most. Walking to her car under the fading light of another school day, Lila smiled as she heard the sounds of children playing on the playground, their energy and enthusiasm fueled by nutritious meals prepared with care and attention. Tomorrow would bring another day of serving lunch, training staff, developing new programs, and proving that institutional food service could be both economically viable and genuinely nourishing. She had lost her restaurants, her celebrity status, her place in the culinary spotlight, and most of her financial security. But she had gained something infinitely more valuable: the knowledge that her work made a real, measurable difference in young lives, one meal at a time. The chef who serves had found her true calling not in impressing critics or earning awards, but in nourishing the future. And in the laughter of well-fed children, the gratitude of families, and the measurable improvements in academic achievement, she had discovered that this was the most important kitchen she had ever worked in. Years later, when food service professionals across the country spoke about innovations in school nutrition, they would reference the Park model, a comprehensive approach that proved institutional food could be both economical and genuinely nourishing. But for Lila, the real measure of success would always be simpler and more immediate: the sight of children eagerly eating healthy food, asking for seconds, and developing eating habits that would serve them throughout their lives. The woman who had once sought fame and recognition in fine dining had found her true purpose in feeding hungry children. And in making that choice, embracing that transformation, she had discovered that sometimes the greatest victories come not from reaching the pinnacle of your profession, but from finding work that serves something infinitely larger and more important than yourself. 5 years after her consulting work began, Lila stood before the newly constructed central kitchen training facility, watching the final preparations for its grand opening. The 15,000 square foot building would serve as headquarters for the district's nutrition program, a training center for food service staff from across the region, and a demonstration kitchen where students, parents, and community members could learn about nutrition, cooking, and healthy eating. The facility represented the culmination of everything she had worked toward since that first day when she secretly supplemented children's meals with her own money and ingredients. What had started as one person's refusal to accept inadequate nutrition for children had grown into a comprehensive program that served as a model for school districts nationwide. "Lila, are you ready for the dedication ceremony?" Patricia Gonzalez asked, approaching with a folder of papers and the satisfied expression of someone who had seen a vision become reality. "As ready as I'll ever be," Lila replied, adjusting her simple black dress. She had been asked to speak at the opening ceremony, an honor that both pleased and intimidated her. The auditorium was filled with an unlikely mixture of people: school board members and district administrators, food service workers and teachers, parents and community leaders, representatives from other school districts who had come to learn about the program, and most importantly, students from across the district who had been directly affected by the nutrition improvements. Marcus Thompson, now in 8th grade and preparing for high school, sat in the front row with his mother. Sophia Martinez, a confident 5th grader, waved enthusiastically when she spotted Lila at the podium. Dozens of other children filled the seats, representing thousands more who had benefited from better school nutrition. Board President Helen Carter introduced Lila with words that would have seemed impossible 5 years earlier. Today, we dedicate this facility to the principle that every child deserves nutrition that supports their health, development, and ability to learn. Our nutrition consultant, Lila Park, transformed not only how we feed our students, but how we think about the relationship between food and education. As Lila approached the podium, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The collapse of her restaurant empire had felt like the end of her professional life. The months of unemployment, financial struggle, and professional exile had been the darkest period she had ever experienced. But standing before this audience, representing a program that had improved the lives of thousands of children, she understood that her career destruction had actually been a redirection toward work that mattered more than anything she had previously accomplished. 5 years ago, she began, I thought I knew what success looked like. I measured achievement by awards, reviews, and recognition. I believed that feeding people was about creating impressive dishes that demonstrated my skills and creativity. She paused, looking out at the children in the audience. Working with these students taught me that the most important cooking isn't about impressing critics. It's about nourishing people who depend on you, especially children who trust adults to take care of their basic needs. The presentation focused on the measurable outcomes of comprehensive nutrition improvement, academic achievement gains, reduced behavioral problems, improved attendance, enhanced community engagement, and cost savings that had allowed the district to expand programs rather than cut them. But the real success, Lila continued, isn't captured in statistics or budget reports. It's in Marcus Thompson's confidence as he enters high school, knowing that good nutrition supported his academic growth. It's in Sophia Martinez's enthusiasm for learning, fueled by meals that gave her energy and focus. It's in thousands of children who developed healthy eating habits that will serve them throughout their lives. After the ceremony, as guests toured the new facility and observed cooking demonstrations, Lila found herself in conversation with Dr. Michael Chen, a researcher from the State University who had been studying the district's nutrition program. Ms. Park, our longitudinal study shows remarkable correlations between your nutrition improvements and student outcomes, Dr. Chen explained. Academic achievement, graduation rates, college enrollment, and even long-term health indicators all show measurable improvements in students who participated in your program during elementary school. The research validated what Lila had observed daily in her work with children. Proper nutrition during critical developmental years had effects that extended far beyond the cafeteria. Students who received quality school meals developed better eating habits, performed better academically, and made healthier choices throughout their lives. The economic impact is equally significant, Dr. Chen continued. For every dollar invested in improved school nutrition, the community sees approximately $4 in reduced healthcare costs, increased productivity, and enhanced educational outcomes. That evening, after the celebration had ended and the facility had been secured for the night, Lila walked through the empty demonstration kitchen. The gleaming equipment, organized storage areas, and spacious preparation spaces represented resources she could never have imagined during her early days of secretly supplementing meals with her own money. But the physical facility was less important than the philosophical transformation it represented. The district had moved from viewing food service as a necessary expense to understanding nutrition as an investment in student success. Other districts were implementing similar programs, creating a ripple effect that was changing institutional food service across the country. Her phone rang with a call from Catherine Williams, the state education official who had once offered her a policy position that she had declined. Lila, I wanted to congratulate you on today's dedication, Catherine said. Your local program has become our statewide model. We're implementing Park Model nutrition standards in over 200 districts, affecting more than 500,000 students. The recognition was gratifying, but Lila felt most proud of the work that happened away from public attention. The daily interactions with children, the training sessions with food service staff, the family cooking classes that built community connections. Catherine, I appreciate the recognition, but the real heroes are the cafeteria workers who embraced new techniques, the administrators who supported program changes, and the children who were willing to try new foods. That's exactly why your approach has been so successful, Catherine replied. You focused on practical implementation rather than policy development, on people rather than procedures. 6 months later, Lila received an invitation that represented the ultimate recognition of her career transformation. The James Beard Foundation, the most prestigious organization in American culinary arts, asked her to accept their humanitarian award for her work in school nutrition. Standing on the stage at the Beard Awards ceremony in Chicago, surrounded by celebrity chefs and food industry leaders who represented the world she had once inhabited, Lila felt the strange circularity of her professional journey. This award recognizes chefs who use their skills to address hunger, promote sustainability, and improve food access, the presenter announced. Lila Park has demonstrated that culinary excellence isn't about earning stars or impressing critics. It's about ensuring that every person, especially every child, has access to nutrition that supports their health and development. Accepting the award, Lila thought about the children who had inspired this work. Marcus, Sophia, and thousands of others who had taught her that the most important audience for any chef wasn't food critics or celebrity clients, but hungry people who needed nourishment. I accept this award on behalf of every food service worker who chooses quality over convenience, every administrator who invests in children's nutrition, and every child who deserves better than processed junk food, she said. The future of our communities depends on how well we nourish the next generation. After the ceremony, several celebrity chefs approached her with opportunities to return to high-end restaurant work, open new establishments, or develop television programs. The offers were financially attractive and professionally flattering, representing everything she had once desperately wanted to recover. Thank you, but I'm exactly where I need to be, she told each inquirer. I have more important work to do. The next morning, she flew back to Metro City and drove directly to Lincoln Elementary, where she was scheduled to help prepare lunch for 400 students. Dorothy Williams, now head of staff training for the district, greeted her with the easy familiarity of someone who had witnessed her complete transformation. How was the fancy awards ceremony? Dorothy asked with gentle teasing. Nice recognition, but I'm happier to be back in the kitchen, Lila replied, tying on her apron and checking the prep schedule. We're serving roasted vegetable and quinoa bowls today, right? As lunch service began, the same children who had inspired her original commitment to better nutrition approached her station with enthusiasm and trust. Sophia Martinez, now in 6th grade and preparing for middle school, had become one of the cafeteria's informal ambassadors, helping newer students navigate the lunch line and encouraging them to try unfamiliar healthy foods. Ms. Park, thank you for teaching me that vegetables can taste good, Sophia said as she passed through the line. I'm going to be a nutritionist when I grow up, just like you. You're going to be whatever you choose to be, Lila replied, adding extra portions to Sophia's tray. But whatever you do, remember that taking care of people's basic needs is always important work. As the afternoon wound down and the last students finished lunch, Lila reflected on the unexpected trajectory of her career. She had started as a young chef with dreams of culinary stardom, achieved celebrity status and professional recognition, lost everything through circumstances beyond her control, and ultimately found work that mattered more than any previous accomplishment. The woman who had once cooked for movie stars and food critics had discovered that feeding hungry children was infinitely more meaningful than any recognition the culinary world could offer. In choosing service over celebrity, community over recognition, and children's needs over personal ambition, she had found the purpose that had been missing from even her most successful restaurant years. Walking to her car at the end of another day, Lila passed the playground where children played with the energy that came from proper nutrition. Their laughter and enthusiasm represented the true measure of her success. Not awards or reviews, but young lives that were healthier, stronger, and better prepared for learning because of the care and attention she brought to their daily meals. The chef who serves had discovered that the most important kitchen wasn't one that earned stars or impressed critics, but one that nourished the future, one child at a time. And in making that discovery, she had found work that would matter long after any restaurant review was forgotten, work that would continue influencing young lives for generations to come. Years from now, when Marcus and Sophia and thousands of other students became adults with children of their own, they would carry forward the lesson that proper nutrition was a form of care, that food could be both healthy and delicious, and that every person deserved meals prepared with attention and respect. That legacy, Lila knew, was worth more than any culinary award or professional recognition she had ever received or could ever hope to achieve. The transformation was complete. From celebrity chef to community servant, from seeking recognition to providing nourishment, from cooking for applause to cooking for the future. And in that transformation, she had discovered that the greatest success came not from being celebrated, but from serving those who needed it most. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear what inspired you the most. And where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.